Engin Terzi quits East versus West. What has happened over this last week in arm wrestling? Some crazy things are going down right now, and I'll try to explain it the best I can. So, a quick summary: Engin Terzi didn't just quit, he actually sold East versus West to someone. We all know that. So, it's not like he's just quitting out of nowhere. He isn't actually the owner of East versus West. Now, he's quitting and he's most likely going to go start his own league. Now, why is that? Because he believes he's not getting his way in the organization, even though he's not the owner anymore. He thinks all his ideas are not getting taken seriously and he's being ignored. He thinks all the athletes aren't getting paid, stuff like that. I'm not too sure on that whole thing because we can't be sure on what actually is happening around the whole pay with athletes. I'm sure if they weren't actually paying athletes, people like Devon larratt would actually speak out. I'd hope he'd have more, backbone on that. So because Engen is leaving East versus West, a bunch of all the European athletes like Hermes, Levon, Vitaly have all said they're leaving with him and going to blindly follow Engen and separate the whole arm wrestling sport again. You know, basically pushing it back another 10 years. It's such a shame, the arm wrestling. I hope this doesn't actually last and the athletes manage to get their own brain and come back and try to get back into this. As soon as Brian Shaw joined the sport, we could be making this arm wrestling league so big. East versus West could be amazing. I mean, at this point, if this does happen, I think Brian Shaw and Devon larratt should just make their own league. Forget everyone else. Two big athletes. Devon larratt is what put arm wrestling on the map, and that is the truth, and no one can deny that. And Brian Shaw is what is going to push it over the limit and make it world famous, in my opinion. So if those two work together and just made their own league, paid their athletes, we all know Brian Shaw can pay his athletes. He's done it in his own events. He can organise that perfectly. So pay will be no issue. It's just about getting all the athletes to come to the event, because I believe Engen just doesn't want the European athletes like Levon, Vitaly, certain ones to lose. I think he wants to keep that sort of image of them being way better than the Americans, the British, all these people, Canadians. It doesn't seem like they want the pool. They don't want the arm wrestle. They'll arm wrestle about once a year and then call it a day. It's a shame in my opinion. These people should be arm wrestling 4, 6 times a year, at least one tournament as well a year. It should be more arm wrestling. And that if there was more arm wrestling, there'd be more tournaments, more chances for more people to pull as well. So even more people could earn money, and then that would also push it out to the audience more. But I believe we all know it doesn't matter what we say. Engen is a very stubborn man and he will not change his mind. And I believe he's going to drag down a lot of these athletes with him. And I don't think people are going to follow him over to a new event he makes. I don't think the audience is going to go over there. At least the uh, English speaking audience, I don't think they're going to follow it. I think they're just going to leave him in the dust because I believe they'll be more interested in Brian Shaw starting something up and making arm wrestling even better with better rules as well. I believe that's what Devon larratt and a lot of people had issues with, that there was no strict rule set planned out. It was kind of a up to the referee's decision. And Engen was refusing to actually set out a rule set. I believe that was one of the other issues. But then, in my opinion, he's not the owner anymore, so it shouldn't be up to him. It should be the new owner's opinion, and he should be the one doing it, not controlled by Engin Terzi. Anyway, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this. Am I wrong? Am I right? Who's in the right here? Please tell me your opinions below. I'd love to hear them. I'm only one side of the story talking about what I think. I'd like to hear other opinions, so peace out.